I find it incredibly unfair that Capricorns get an undeserved reputation for being the craziest sign of the zodiac. If you had me for a fucking neighbor, you'd be crazy as hell too. In case you hadn't noticed, this ain't fucking Sesame Street. On Uncensored, you're not going to see things such as, this portion of the show is brought to you by the number 6, or the letter K. Although, come to think of it, the letter K ends my favorite 4-letter word. And the 6th letter also starts that same 4-letter word, because the 6th letter of the alphabet happens to be F. So come to think of it, 6 and K are actually pretty important. So maybe we should have segments like that on Uncensored. As of 2016, there are approximately 7.4 billion humans on planet Earth, and approximately 3.8 trillion spiders. That's right, folks. We are outnumbered 500,000 to 1. Sleep well tonight. In my home state, people who were born the day I became legally old enough to buy alcoholic beverages can now legally drive a car. Yes, I know the jacket's a little too small for me, but when people who make me look skinny stop wearing tank tops and sporting bare midriffs, I'll stop buying clothes at secondhand stores. There are those who claim that U.S. public school trends away from corporal punishment have led to a decline in the schools. However, Iowa, a state that has banned corporal punishment not only in public schools, but also in private schools since 1989, has one of the highest 4-year graduation rates in the nation. Some years it has the highest. Louisiana, one of the top states that still paddles students in public schools, as well as private schools, has the highest incarceration rate in the world. Now, there will be those who say that those statistics are either just a coincidence or don't matter, but I'm just putting it out there. My country's first president, George Washington, grew marijuana. In fact, in 1797, it was his #1 crop. If people worried a little less about having weeds in their yard and a little more about the chemicals that they spray on their lawns to combat weeds, there would probably be a lot less cancer in the world. By the way, this is my actual yard, and these weeds behind me are taller than I am, and I'm 6'2". But they're not hurting anything, and they're actually quite decorative, as you can see here. Plus, when the wind hits them for shooting videos, it makes for some cool effects, naturally. Quit fucking up your lawns with chemicals, people. If you've ever seen enough independent movies, you have probably noticed that directors love to point the camera toward mirrors. Personally, for my money, I find Australian director Zach Hilditch to be a master at this. But since the budget of Uncensored won't allow me to fly him in from Australia to have him explain why cameras are always shot toward mirrors at an angle like this, you'll just have to settle for me doing the best I can. To put it in the easiest terms I can put it in? Well, here. If you point the camera straight at the mirror, you're gonna see it. There are several things that seem to hold true in most end-of-the-world movies where the world actually ends. Or at least ones I have seen. No, the end of the world does not count. And here's why. In an end-of-the-world movie, where the world actually ends by the end of the movie, that's a given. So that's something that's inevitably going to happen pretty much no matter what. For the purposes of this segment, I will be citing 3 more recent end-of-the-world movies where the end of the world actually happens by the end of the movie. They are Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, 2012, directed by Lorraine Scafaria. 444, Last Day on Earth, 2011, directed by Abel Ferrara. And These Final Hours, 2014, directed by Zach Hilditch. Either at least one character in the film is in denial that the world is actually going to end. In the case of 444, Last Day on Earth, Dee Dee's mother, and in the case of These Final Hours, Vicky, possibly Freddy. Actually, probably Freddy. Or they actually have a plan to survive the impending doom. One of Penny's ex-boyfriends, whose character name I forget at the moment, in Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. Freddy in These Final Hours. Both have shelters built underneath their homes. As if there's going to be anything worth surviving after doom is struck. Why the fuck are people still going to work if the world's about to end? Now, in all fairness, in These Final Hours, this does not happen. At least, not in any of the scenes on camera. Though there is someone in the beginning of the film who says they're stranded at work and being told not to leave. I'm sorry. If an asteroid's about to hit and I'm at work, I'm getting the fuck out of there. I don't care if I die in the process, but I'm not going to die at work. That's just that. Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. This just totally gets crazy because there are 3 examples of people still going to fucking work when the world's about to fucking end. 1, there's a scene where Dodge, Steve Carell's character, buys window cleaner from a store clerk at a convenience store. And it's like $8.50 or something. 2, there's his maid still shows up right up until the end. This is kind of a running joke in the whole movie. And I love the film, but it's just one of those, again, if the world's about to end, I'm not going to be at fucking work. Sorry. I'll call off, write me up, fire me. I'm not going to be there. The 3rd scenario of people still going to work in Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. Dodge and Penny, Keira Knightley's character, they go to this bar and grill place that reminds me for all the world like a certain chain literally on drugs. There's even part of the scene where they start smoking weed and having an orgy. And their explanation is that they just feel so much like family that they'd rather spend their last days there than anywhere else. Now, I've eaten out a lot of places. Very unlikely this would be the case at any restaurant if there was an impending end of the world situation. But you never know. Okay, so there's not one, not two, not even three, but up to 5 situations in 444, Last Day on Earth, where people are still going to fucking work when the world's about to end. In one of these, well, there's a broadcaster still on the air on the last day of civilization. Also, now they go off the air at a certain point so they can spend their last hours with their families. Logical. Somehow I don't think they would wait until the last day, though, unless they are just really, really dedicated to their job and love what they do that much. I mean, I might be out shooting live footage in such a scenario, so it is possible. It's even somewhat plausible. Moving on, they're able, less than 12 hours before the actual end of the world, they're able to call and order Vietnamese food, and there's a little hidden subtext here if you're watching with a somewhat critical approach, is the phones are still working. So there's still people maintaining the phone lines, even at this stage, and they're actually still able to get Vietnamese food delivered. Good thing to know if you ever find yourself in an end-of-the-world situation, find you want some pho before you die. And yes, it's pronounced pho, not pho. Even though it's spelled pho, it's pronounced pho. There's actually a scene where a cop in uniform is still trying to keep order just hours before the end. There's actually a shot of a truck coming down the street. In other words, some poor sap had such a shitty dispatcher that he couldn't even get home time for the end of the world. As a former truck driver, I have no trouble whatsoever believing the validity of this shot. 100%. Hats off to you, Abel Ferrara. In most of the end of the world movies I've seen, and in 2 of the 3 that I'm referencing in this segment, These Final Hours and 444 Last Day on Earth, someone actually says they don't want to die at some point. In These Final Hours, Vicky bemoans that she's not ready to die yet, and in 444 Last Day on Earth, there's a scene, it's actually the same scene where the cop appears, where some woman on the street that Willem Dafoe's character, Cisco, encounters is all crying and upset and saying, "I don't want to die." And it's actually kind of annoying. But there would probably be people like this out on the streets in droves. And there would probably also be assholes walking the streets who would be taking the attitude of walking up to them and saying, "Well, tough shit, you're gonna die, deal with it." Sex and drugs everywhere. Seeking a friend for the end of the world. At the bar and grill that's still open, Dodge and Penny leave just before the entire staff participates in a massive orgy. These Final Hours, drug use everywhere. There's James snorting cocaine toward the beginning of the film, and at one point Rose is tricked into taking a pill that makes her very sick. We're never really told what the pill is, but the person who gives it to her tells her if she takes it that she'll take her to find her dad. Just totally fucked up. 444, Last Day on Earth. There's a scene... Well, there are multiple scenes where the two main characters, at random intervals during the last few hours on Earth, have sex. And there is a scene where Cisco meets back up with some of his old friends who are all recovered drug addicts, and some of them are vowing to stay clean until the end, and others are just saying, fuck it, I'm gonna get high one last time. At least once, in an end-of-the-world movie where the world actually ends, somebody usually commits suicide before the actual end of the world. This happens in Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. One of Dodge's co-workers jumps off the building at work and lands on Dodge's car. In These Final Hours, there's a scene in the library where James and Rose come up to this family, and the father is planning to shoot the entire family and then himself so that they can die humanely rather than be burned alive. In 444, Last Day on Earth, there's a scene where Cisco sees somebody jump off of a building and tries to holler at the guy to stop him from doing it, but the guy does it anyway. Little known fact of the week. 12 ounces of Mountain Dew contain 55 milligrams of caffeine. 12 ounces of Red Bull contain 111 milligrams of caffeine. Coffee per 8 ounces contains between 70 and 140 milligrams of caffeine. In Ohio, it is illegal to have sex with a car. However, we are also one of the 38 states where bestiality is legal. There are plants that we know today are inedible to humans and even poisonous if eaten. How the fuck did we find out which ones were poisonous? It's safe to say I have a Sansevieria problem in my home. I don't have enough Sansevieria. I need a few more. Why do tongue twisters always go something to the effect of how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood, instead of how much shit could a dipshit dip if a dipshit could dip shit? In societies influenced by Christianity, it's customary to say bless you to someone after they sneeze. So are you supposed to say damn you to a Satanist when they sneeze? And what do you say to an atheist when they sneeze? Okay, I'm kind of excited because I've actually got time for a halfway decent conspiracy theory of the week that some people out there might actually be crazy enough to even take halfway seriously. Bear in mind, even I don't take my conspiracy theories all that seriously, and I don't really believe any of them. Full disclosure. I just like to come up with different ones to see how crazy they sound. And this week's conspiracy theory is this. Video games are propaganda for drug lords to sell drugs to your little ones and your teenagers, and maybe even you. Bear with me here a moment. Take a good classic video game, Pac-Man, for instance. Okay, first of all, you assume the role of a giant yellow character who is nothing but a mouth, literally. And the whole goal of the game is to eat your way through mazes full of pills while running from ghosts. And if you eat the special blue pills, the ghosts run away from you and you can eat them for points. Maybe you're not quite sold on this conspiracy theory just yet. So next I'm going to reference Super Mario Brothers. More specifically, the first Super Mario Brothers game that was kind of popular when I was around 8 years old. I can actually remember playing it when it was new. Here, now, I will look aside from the concept that a plumber from Brooklyn actually thinks he's even got a shot at winning the heart of a princess, because you don't necessarily have to be too high to believe that. However, where it gets kind of interesting is in the gameplay itself. There are certain mushrooms that give you superpowers, and a flower that allows you to shoot fireballs, while other mushrooms are conspiring with turtles to kill you. Now, when has anybody ever known a turtle to try to kill somebody, except maybe those red snappers that you sometimes see around where I grew up, and those motherfuckers are violent. But most ordinary turtles are too slow to be able to kill anything human size. And don't even get me started on Pokemon Go, okay?